You know, big money is changing lanes. SoftBank, the fund that's famous for betting on world-shaping ideas, just cut its team right after posting record profits. So why would they do that? Well, it's to go all in on AI. We're going to break down what happens when one of the world's biggest investors decides to bet the farm on a single idea, who wins, and who gets left in the dust.
So let's just try to wrap our heads around this for a second. On one hand, you have SoftBank reporting its best quarter ever. And on the other, they're cutting staff. These two things seem like they absolutely cannot exist at the same time. But they're not a contradiction. They're actually two sides of one single enormous bet.
Okay, so first, let's look at the official story. You know, the one you see in all the glowing headlines. On paper, SoftBank is doing better than it's ever done before.
First up, their net asset value, which is basically the total worth of everything they own minus their debt. It just hit a new record of 32.4 trillion yen. That surge was pretty much powered by the massive success they're seeing in their portfolio, especially with AI.
And that incredible value, it translated directly to the bottom line. We're talking a net income of over 421 billion yen for the quarter. I mean, that is a huge, huge turnaround from the heavy losses they were posting just a year ago. And of course, the market absolutely loved this news. Investors just piled in, pushing SoftBank stock to an all-time high. They were rewarding what looked like just incredible performance. So, on the surface, everything seems perfect, right?
Well, this is exactly where that official story starts to get complicated. Because while the market was popping champagne, a completely different story was unfolding inside SoftBank's most famous division.
And here's the twist. Right as those profits were rolling in, reports started surfacing that the Vision Fund, SoftBank's legendary investment arm, was getting ready for some pretty significant layoffs.
So the really crucial point here is that this wasn't some minor adjustment. This was a reported 20% reduction of their global team, affecting about 60 employees. And it happened right at the peak of their financial success. How on earth does that make any sense?
So how do you square that circle? Well, it turns out the record profits and the major layoffs, they aren't a contradiction at all. They are the direct result of a single, massive, strategic decision.
See, SoftBank is fundamentally changing its game. They're moving away from just sprinkling money across hundreds of different startups. Instead, they're concentrating all their firepower on what they see as the absolute core of the future: AI infrastructure. It's the classic gold rush play, right? Don't bet on the miners, bet on the companies selling the shovels, the railroads, and the maps.
And their new playbook, it really centers on two key players. Their own earnings report calls them the twin drivers of future growth. You've got ARM, the chip designer that's in almost every smartphone, and of course OpenAI, the leader in generative AI. This whole pivot is timed perfectly to capitalize on what everyone is calling the fourth AI boom, the era of generative AI. It started gaining steam with models like GPT-3, then it just exploded into the public consciousness with ChatGPT, and now it's accelerating every single day. SoftBank is betting this is not just a trend, they're betting it's the next technological revolution.
And believe me, they are putting serious money where their mouth is. To kick off this new strategy, the second Vision Fund has already funneled a massive $7.5 billion into OpenAI. This isn't just some small bet. This is a monumental commitment to a single, focused idea.
So, what happens when one of the biggest pools of tech capital in the entire world suddenly just changes direction? Well, it creates a whole new set of winners, and it leaves a lot of others behind.
Let's start with the losers. These are the kinds of investments SoftBank is actively moving away from now. You've got bets like WeWork, which cost the second Vision Fund billions. This really represents that old model, a sprawling, often underperforming portfolio.
Now contrast that with the winners. I mean, look at these massive successes from their first fund, like DoorDash, which returned over 11 times their initial investment. This is the model they're chasing: fewer, bigger, high-conviction bets that can literally reshape an industry. And that's exactly what they see in AI.
So the shift is crystal clear. They're moving from a wide net, one designed to catch hundreds of smaller fish, to a single, sharp spear aimed right at the heart of the AI revolution. It's a total pivot from breadth to depth, from diversification to extreme focus.
Okay, this all sounds like a pretty bold, decisive plan. But here's the billion-dollar question. Is this pivot a stroke of strategic genius, or is it just a reckless, all-or-nothing gamble? To really understand the stakes here, you have to look at the track record. This whole pivot is happening on the heels of some absolutely staggering losses. Vision Fund 2 has already burned through over $22 billion. So this isn't just a strategic shift. You could easily see this as a desperate attempt to make it all back on one giant roll of the dice.
And this brings up some really critical smart skeptic questions we should all be asking. Is this a real strategy change, or are they just cleaning house? Does AI first mean fewer deals, or just a few colossal ones? And as SoftBank leans more on AI for its own due diligence, can an algorithm ever really replace human judgment? The real answer? Well, it won't be in the headlines. It'll be in watching where the money actually flows next.
Ultimately, SoftBank is making a bet that's going to define its future, and it's going to send ripples across the entire tech landscape. It's going to create huge winners and leave some really big gaps in funding for anyone who's outside that AI bubble. Which leaves us with one final crucial question. When a giant bets the future on a single idea, what happens to everyone else if they're wrong?